We have a quorum. It is also the time for the meeting. Let me call the meeting to order. This is the meeting of the panel on commerce and industry. Please look at the minutes of the last meeting. No members indicated that they would like to amend the minutes. Can I please ask members to confirm the minutes? Okay, thank you. Since the last meeting, the Secretariat issued one information paper on the financial position of the Applied Research Fund for the period from the 1st of June to 31st of August 2017. Chairman, I'd like to say something about this paper. Okay, yes, but please let me finish. That's paper CB bracket 1412/17 to 18 bracket 01. Mr. Ronick Chan, you say you have something to say about the paper. Please. Please. With regard to the investment projects handled by the then industry department, there should be 2 more. I hope that next time they should tabulate these 2 outstanding projects. Okay, sure. I'll ask them to do that. Item 3, date of next meeting and items for discussion. Please note that our next meeting will be held on the 27th of February, a Tuesday. There will be 2 items for discussion. 1, latest position of the testing and certification industry in Hong Kong. You remember that with regard to the certification and testing industry, we are going to hold a public hearing to listen to the views of the sector. We'll therefore have to assign more time for the next meeting. This will take up 2 hours. The second item is copyright exceptions for people with a print disability under the Marrakesh Treaty to facilitate access to published works for persons who are blind, visually impaired, or otherwise print disabled. Proposed way forward. We will assign 45 minutes to this item. Therefore, we are going to invite deputations to the next meeting, and therefore we are going to lengthen the time for the next meeting for 45 minutes. That is from 10 a.m. to 12:45 p.m. Please mark your diary. So we have enough time for the items. Item 4, development of Lok Ma Chau Loop, advanced works and main works package 1. I'll now invite the administration to come in first. Members can now press the button to indicate your wish to speak.
什麼？上個冇議題啊。
正話有人撳。
Just now someone pressed the button. Shouldn't we cancel those first because we are now at another item? No one pressed any buttons. No, you did not pay attention, but some people pressed the button. Yeah, maybe I missed it. Is it that some members are in a hurry to go? If you don't mind, then yes, we'll try to accommodate you.
係咪啊？林健鋒議員係需要
Mr. Jeffrey Lam, do you have to leave early? If you don't mind, we will let you speak first, all right? Okay.
好。咁有關嘅係議程嘅第四項呢係
Item 4. This is about the advanced works and main works package 1 for Lok Ma Chau Loop. Now we'll give the floor to the officials to take us through the paper, and then we'll be able to have a question and answer session. This is a financial proposal, and by the middle of the year, the administration will take this item to the Finance Committee for funding support. I'll now ask the administration to take us through the paper. Paper CB bracket 1449 17 to 18 bracket 03. The Secretariat has also prepared an updated background brief. That's in CB bracket 1 449 bracket 04. I'd like to remind all members, according to ROP 83A, if you have direct or indirect pecuniary interest related to the item under discussion, please disclose the nature of such interest before you speak on the item. And also, now I'd like the officials to take us through the paper now. Thank you, Chairman. The Hong Kong SARG and the Shenzhen Municipal People's Government signed an MOU in January 2017 in order to cooperate and develop the Hong Kong Shenzhen Innovation and Technology Park so that we have a cooperation base for science and research, and also we will include higher education, cultural and creative and other facilities. According to the MOU, the SARG will be responsible for the construction of the infrastructure within the loop, including site formation and infrastructural facilities, and the provision of supporting infrastructural facilities outside the loop which are necessary for the development of the park. The SARG would like to apply for funding from the FC so that we can do decontamination work under 748CL and also detailed design and site investigation for package 1 under 760CL. We plan to start the advanced works in mid-2018 and also detailed design for package 1 with the aim of completing the relevant site formation for the first stage of the park by 2021 so that superstructure can be developed by the Hong Kong Shenzhen Innovation and Technology Park Limited. Now I'd like to ask Mr. Lau, the Chief Engineer, to use a few slides to let you know the details about these two projects, and then we'll welcome questions from members. We urge members to support this project. Mr. Lau Wing Kam, CEDD. Thank you, Mr. Liu. Chairman, members, I will now introduce the paper to you. This is to upgrade 748CL to Cat A. For carrying out land decontamination within the loop and advanced engineering works, and also upgrade part of 760CL to Cat A for engaging consultants to undertake detailed design and site investigation for site formation and also associated infrastructure works. I'd like to talk about the background of the loop area. Originally, this was within the Shenzhen Administrative District, but in 1997, after the Shenzhen River was drained, the loop area now is within the boundary of the Hong Kong SAR. Originally, it was a restricted area on the border, and then in 2013, Hong Kong opened up the restricted area, and most of the loop area now does not fall within the restricted area. The SARG and the Shenzhen Municipal Government signed the MOU on the 3rd of January 2017. And that is the cooperation MOU for developing the loop area. According to that MOU, the SARG will be responsible for the construction of the infrastructure within the loop and the provision of supporting infrastructural facilities. And land will also be given to the Hong Kong Science and Technology Parks Corporation in order to develop the INT Park. And in October 2017, the Science Park set up a subsidiary, which is called the Hong Kong Shenzhen Innovation and Technology Park Limited, which will be responsible for building the superstructure. There will be a gross floor area of 1.2 million square meters. That is the gross floor area, and it will be for science platform and also for higher education, cultural and creative and other complementary facilities. In terms of advanced works, there will be decontamination and also establishment of an ecological area within the loop and also temporary access to the loop. This is for preparing for follow-up works in the loop area. As for main works package 1, there will be detailed design and site formation for the loop area, and also roads and infrastructural and complementary facilities for package 1, and also there will be mitigation for the environment. We are proposing to upgrade part of 760 CL to grade Cat A in order to do detailed design and site investigation for package 1 main works. As for public consultation, on the 6th of March 2017, we consulted this panel, the development panel and also the ITB panel on the development plan. It was a joint meeting. We also consulted the Shantin Rural Committee in 2017 and also the Yunlong District Council, the North District Council, and also Shangshui District Rural Committee. There was no objection against the loop area development and advanced works. As for the money side and also timing, we expect the advanced works to cost $500 million, and for site investigation, it would be $260 million.
In the first half of 2018, we will apply to the AFC for funding in the first half of 2018. In order to expedite the progress of this project, we also intend to, after our meeting today, proceed to invite tender for both contracts so that we can begin the advanced works in 28 and also the design for the detailed design and site investigation for package 1 of the main works. We hope that the advanced work will be completed by the end of 2021, and by 2023 we would complete the design for phase 1 of the main works. Thank you. I'd like to thank the officials for that briefing. We may now start our discussion. May I propose that each member be given 4 minutes, question and answers included. And if there's time left, we can go for a second round. Mr. Ma Fung Kwok, followed by Mr. Jeffrey Lam. Thank you, Chairman. The Science and Technology Park, I support the broad direction, but I have a few questions. Right now, the Science Park Corporation is spearheading this project. Earlier on, the Science Park has now taken centralized control of our science parks. Recently, I have received some requests for assistance and complaints saying that originally they have been operating in the science parks, but when they are engaged in cultural and creative industries, and after they've done so for 2 decades, when they're trying to upgrade, they are encountering difficulties. That is, the Science Park Corporation regarded their upgrading as changing the land use, and they resorted to different means to evict them or to require them to pay huge amount of premium. And this Shenzhen, Hong Kong, Science and Technology Park, I think I'd like to ask what will be our policy regarding who are the people who can operate in the park. Cultural and creative industry is an important part of that. But for many of the industrial parks in Hong Kong, the present policy of the Science Park Corporation apparently is different from what you're proposing in the paper. You're giving the impression now that you want to evict the enterprises which are now operating in these industrial parks. If they want to transform, you are setting all kinds of restrictions, making it very difficult for them. So what exactly is happening? And for the park, which is going to be built in the loop, what will be your policy and strategies to deal with these cultural and creative industries who will move in there? Director, thank you. If I may respond briefly, I'd like to thank Mr. Ma for the question. First of all, the Science and Technology Park Corporation and its subsidiary in future will operate independently of each other because the subsidiary is also quite substantial in scale, having to operate the new Science and Technology Park, the Innovation and Technology Park. But at the moment, it is already working on the criteria as to which enterprises can move into the park, and also what are the criteria for applications to move into the park. We expect that in the next 1 or 2 months they will, conduct a study. Hopefully they can complete by the first half of next year. They would have some broad, plan laid down, at which time we'll have more details regarding what the mode of operation will be. Mr. Ma also asked about the Science and Technology Park and the industrial estates that they manage. Basically, for the industrial estates, the land was granted or leased to all the enterprises operating there. The lease stipulates that it would be for production purposes. Right now, we have many business enterprises operating in industrial parks, and the operations and production lines have already moved out of the industrial park, and they're only using the premises as offices or other uses. So this might already have deviated from the terms of the lease. And that's why we need to, for those which are no longer using, Chairman, we need to, take back the premises. This is exactly what has gone wrong. For the enterprises try to upgrade themselves, you're creating obstacles for them. Basically, this has to do with the lease. But for individual cases, the Science and Technology Park Corporation will talk to the individual tenants to find out what are their needs and whether they have to operate in the industrial estates or whether or not they can operate elsewhere. So each case is different. So we will need to look at each case individually. Well, I can tell you that there have been more than just 1 or 2 complaints that I have received. You say that the Hong Kong Shenzhen Science and Innovation Technology Park, of course, obviously those in the management of the subsidiary would come from the corporation itself. So they will be separate. There will be a different management team for the subsidiary. They each have to operate very large items. But I think our industrial policy should be consistent. I understand what Mr. Ma is asking. I'll go back and talk to the Science and Technology Corporation. Indeed, I'd like to find out how many such cases there are, and perhaps I can go back to Mr. Ma. I think you may, ask the department to follow up on those cases, and if need be, you can come back and report to this panel again. Mr. Jeffrey Lam, thank you. Regarding the development plan for the loop, I'm all in support of this project. So does our alliance. I believe that this site will offer young people in Hong Kong and Shenzhen a very good opportunity for them to develop. It will also enable the talents in science and technology in Hong Kong, Shenzhen, and the Bay Area to jointly develop there. But after the loop is developed, there are several things which the government should pay attention to. First of all, talents, tax issues, and also entry and exit policies. Right now we have a 1 week, one visa policy. If you only allow the IT people to only come down once a week, that would be rather, difficult. I mean, science and technology is advancing so rapidly. So for all such restrictions, they will actually stifle the development of our science and technology. for this, I support the proposed main works, but only in 2023 will the project be completed. After it has been completed, how long will it take to build these facilities? Shenzhen's GDP has already exceeded Hong Kong. If I were into innovation technology, I will not wait until the loop is ready. I may as well go to Lamshan in Shenzhen, and I can immediately tap into the science, research, and technology, facilities there. So why is the government so slow all the time in the design and in the future development and construction of this park? Could you be more expedient? And regarding the facilities, many people in innovation technology and the business sectors have reservations because you are not offering comprehensive supporting facilities like accommodation. So after the people have worked, then they will need to leave. So how can they be the talents working there be happy and confident? Thank you, Mr. Lam, for your support. Let's go back to the timetable. Actually, we would like to start the project as soon as possible so that the park can operate as soon as possible. So with the support of this panel, we will proceed to invite tender as soon as possible. And after the site is formed, we can hand over the site for the Science Park Corporation to build the infrastructures. Regarding talents, tax issues, and immigration policies, I'll defer to the director. Thank you. Thank Mr. Lam for your comments. On the financial and tax issues, what will be the supporting facilities? We'll certainly look into that. For the subsidiary, what are the areas of research it will focus on, and so on, that will be covered in that study. The government, I think we can all see that we are now launching many initiatives. We're also looking into what other facilities we will provide. Regarding entry and exit, I think Mr. Lam can rest assured because in the MOU that we signed with the Shenzhen authorities in Chapter 3, Section 3, we already stipulated there will be convenient entry and exit arrangements for those who work there. We will look into that with the immigration department, but you can rest assured that there will be expedient entry and exit arrangements. As to whether we will offer accommodation for the people working there, again, we are attaching a lot of importance to that. At the moment, we already have a pilot that is in the Science Park in Tolo Harbor. Next to that park, we already have quarters there, and we will be applying to the FC for funding to proceed with that pilot project. If it turns out to be successful, then in our detailed design, we will also look into whether we need to build similar facilities next to this park. So I think members can rest assured that we'll certainly look into that carefully. Chairman, I have 3 questions. First of all, the park will be a place where top-notch, innovation and technology talents will be working. In paragraph 18, you say soil contamination is not very serious. It's not a serious problem. There are only 5,700 square meters of area land that need to be treated. Could you explain to us that it is so safe that you can ensure the safety of the people who work there in the long term? Secondly, I'd like to ask about design. In Kai Tak and Kowloon East, some members have asked whether or not the at grade traffic arrangements could be moved underground. I understand that you have a long time before you can complete the design. In your MOU with the Shenzhen authorities, in Article 6, you say that Shenzhen has also a 3 square kilometer, science and technology park. So I don't know for when will the science and technology park in Shenzhen be completed, and what's the difference between the completion dates? And in the paper, you say that for the commercial facilities, there will be 60,000 square meters of such site. For the whole loop, you have 1.2 million square meters of land, so 5% will be commercial facilities. Compared with the science park and similar science and technology park, would that be appropriate? As Mr. Jeffrey Lam said, you need to provide the necessary services for them, and you need to offer reasonable amount of commercial facilities. Thank you, Mr. Chan. On land contamination, I'd like Mr. Zheng of the CEDD to answer the question. Madam Choi will respond to the other questions. Thank you. Thank you. Regarding contamination, we are also attaching a lot of importance to this. So the site was, at a time when we were treating the Shenzhen River, the sediments of the river have been piled up there. We understand that part of the area might have been contaminated. When we plan on this development project, we've already conducted a detailed study and assessed the extent of contamination there. And in our investigation, we found out that there are some new soil there, but the contamination is not a serious problem. They will only take up about 57,000 square meters of the area.
When we did details design for the advanced works, we did further investigation and assessment, and we have confirmed that that is the entire area with contamination, and this is in line with the EIA. As for the way to treat it, we are going to do two things. One, the member was concerned about safety for people who will work here in the future. We have acted according to the EIA principles, and we have followed the very stringent standards. Therefore, in certain areas, we will abide by the very stringent standards, and we are going to adopt a very mature methodology, that is solidification and stabilization. So there will be no leakage or seepage of such affecting the safety of workers or people who are going to work there. What about the other 2 points? Yes, about the ratio of commercial facilities. Mr. Chan, I do not have the existing ratio at the science park for now, but there will be restaurants. They will be required. Well, can you give us the ratio after the meeting? What? Yes. Yes. But in the detailed design stage, we'll certainly design for the future people flow, and it is sure that we are going to provide enough facilities for people who are going to work there. As for the Shenzhen side, with regard to this IT park at the Loop, we work very closely with Shenzhen. We reported to this panel that there is a task force within government watching over progress. What about the commissioning date? We still don't know, but we will be communicating with each other on the progress. And as for the board of directors of this Park Limited, there are appointed Shenzhen personnel acting as directors. We will be holding the first board meeting, and we will have very close communication in future meetings of the board, either side will know the timetable of each other, and we are going to work in synergy. Please let us have updated progress reports from time to time. Yes, Mr. Charles Mock, last week at the Establishment Subcommittee, there were creation of posts for the IT Bureau. And I stated my expectations of this IT park at the Loop then, and I won't repeat myself. And I'd like to ask how this IT park can create quality employment for Hong Kong and also help Hong Kong's economic and scientific development. I said then that we should concentrate in internationalizing this place so we can attract international companies. There will be 1.2 million square meters, you say. Now we don't have a breakdown. We don't know where the roads are. We don't know how the different stages of the park are distributed. We don't know the construction timetable. We don't even know what industries will be placed where in the park. As I said last time, we need a data center, for example. And also there will be cultural and creative industries. My first question is, you are talking about main works and advanced works. It seems you are not at that stage yet, but in these few years, will you do consultation in order to decide what you will do at the next stage? How many stages there will be? Because we want to know the entire plan for building the park. And also, roughly, when will you come for funding support for stage 2 or stage 3 main works? What is your timetable for taking the project forward? Thank you for the question, Under Secretary. We are now seeking funding support for advanced works and also main works package 1, detailed design and site investigation. After we have done detailed design, we will come back with funding requests for construction of infrastructure. There will be packages 1 and 2. Package 2 will also be about site formation and infrastructure building. As for the planning for the IT park, and I defer to Ms. Annie Choi. Ms. Choi, as the Undersecretary said, we are talking about the infrastructure this time. Mr. Mock asked about the configuration and distribution of users. Actually, the Park Limited will be starting 2 studies in the next 2 months. One study will be about the overall design of the IT park. This is what you were asking, what buildings will be placed where in the park. And secondly, as I said, I was talking about a study into the business mode. What kind of scientific research would be there? How much would be used by local people? How many institutions will come from overseas? There will be this idea or study about a rough business model. These 2 will be done in parallel. After detailed design is started, it will take some time to complete. The overall design result will be factored into the design for infrastructure, because you have to know how the roads are going to run before you know where to place the buildings and the various industries. After the 2 studies are completed, we'll be able to give more information to Mr. Mock. Are you talking about a year or 2 years down the road? the business model and overall design studies will hopefully be completed within 1 year. Ms. Claudia Mo. Thank you, Chairman. The administration is embarking on major infrastructural projects, and you come to seek funding support to the tune of $800 million. Can our coffers cope? It seems Hong Kong is having such a bad economy that you need to resort to infrastructure to give it a boost. For this project, on the face of it, it seems Shenzhen is benefiting us so much by giving us a piece of land, but the land is contaminated by heavy metals, including potassium and arsenic. You say 57,000 square meters is not a big area, so it's not serious, but that's quite unimaginable. I'm talking about $800 million, over $500 million for construction. Can you give us a further breakdown? How much is spent on decontamination alone? This is my first question. Secondly, design and site investigation, over 200 million. But when I look at the maps, you also talk about compensation for wetland. How much are you talking about for compensating the wetland? How can you compensate for wetland? And number 3, this may not be a question, but my concern. You mentioned that the IT park at the Loop and its future management will not just be shared between Shenzhen and Hong Kong. Rather, Shenzhen will have a bigger say. This is quite worrying. Undersecretary, can I defer to Mr. Cheung, Director of CEDD? Thank you, Ms. Mo, for your questions. As for decontamination, I said it was not very serious. I was talking about 2 aspects. One, the area, that is the quantity. It is a localized area. And the quantity is also limited. We have arsenic containing soil. And also the level of contamination is not high. We explained just now that since, this was not my question. My question was about how much you are going to spend on it. I think he's wasting my time. Okay, about money. We are working out the details of our financial estimate for advanced works. We will include a breakdown in the paper for PWSC, but don't you have a ballpark figure? Well, you have the total sum here. You must have a breakdown. Give me a moment. Well, a ballpark figure. Decontamination will cost about $60 million. As I was explaining, we could go for very mature technology. Can you please be precise? You have 5 contaminated mud pits. Yes, they are very localized. I will spend $60 million on it. What about my second question? Wetland compensation. Within the Loop, we have reed marshes which have to be removed. And therefore, in the advanced works, we are going to set up the ecological area in order to compensate for the loss of reed marshes. And why is it that there is also wetland compensation in the main works? It is because we are going to build roads around the park. Some fish ponds will be affected. We'll have to compensate for the fish ponds as part of the main works. Again, how much? This belongs to the main works project, and we are only applying for design expenditure for the main works. We have to wait for the detailed design before we know how much will be spent on compensating for fish ponds for the main works. Next one, Mr. Yu Si-wing. Thank you, Chairman. I support the project. We must lose no time in developing the loop, but it's going to take a long time, and I agree with Mr. Jeffrey Lam that we should step up the progress. As for design and site investigation, I'd like to ask about the design. Will there be hotels and guest houses to be built? If yes, how much land will it take up? And again, about design and site investigation, what is the order? First design and then investigation, or first investigation and then design? And one more. You're talking about planning for the loop. What about the connecting transport arrangements? Undersecretary. Thank you for your support, Mr. Yu, and for your questions. About land use, I'd like to defer to the planning officer, and Mr. Zheng will take up the other technical questions. And also transportation. It is also Mr. Zheng's area. Planning officer. Thank you. In the loop, we have put aside 1.23 hectares as the commercial zone where hotels can be built. But we have to wait for the detailed design, and so we know what complementary facilities will be required. I'd like to defer to CEDD to talk about transport. Yes, Mr. Yu. First, I'd like to explain about the design and investigation for main works. As I was explaining, this is an infrastructural project, and we are going to do design for that. And the design and the site investigation have to be done at the same time. Sometimes we need information from site investigation before we can do the design, and then we must confirm the design only with information from site investigation.
So they will be done in parallel. Regarding transport arrangements for this new development area, one could say, well, this site was used to be the old loop area, so it's like an island. We therefore need to enhance the road connection. For phase 1, package 1 of the main works, we are proposing to provide for a link road to the west, linking Lok Ma Chau Road and Ha Wan Chin Road. We will widen those roads. They will turn into 2 lanes both ways, and they will be connected to the Sun Tin Highway. Other than land transport, we understand that some of the employees may need to go to the park through the Lok Ma Chau station. So at the MTR station, we will propose to provide a direct link so that those who work in the loop area in the Innovation Technology Park can go directly to the loop. So the road to the west will serve the development of phase 1 or package 1. In the long term, there is also a link road to the east. When the loop is fully developed, according to our work, our study, we would need to provide for another link road to the east, but we will need to conduct a more detailed study and carry out an EIA study first. Mr. Wong Ting Kwong. The development of the loop is now eventually coming on stream. I hope you will really expedite this process because the site has been laying idle for more than 2 decades. Now my question is that for 748CL you are applying for $517 million. For 760CL you are applying for $268 million. I'm worried that the funding may not be enough and you have to ask for supplementary funding, and it's going to be very difficult because in the past there have been lots of obstacles when you ask for supplementary funding. Can you guarantee that you will not have to come to us again for supplementary allocation? That's my first question. Mr. C. You also asked about the question relating to transport. According to your PowerPoint presentation, you'll only be building a bridge to the west going to the loop area. As I said, the loop is an island, and you're going to build a bridge there to the west, and only later on will you be providing for a road to the east to the loop area. So you have two access to the loop area. I wonder whether that's enough. Furthermore, it's only two-way, dual lane two-way. Why won't you consider building it into, four-lane both ways? Because it's going to be a lot of traffic. Other than the Lok Ma Chau station, where you will provide for a road linking up with the loop. But if you consider that when you go from Lok Ma Chau Road going to the Lok Ma Chau station, that road now is very busy already. You have PLBs, buses, taxis, all jam up there. So if you go there and have a look, you will be scared. The traffic congestion will last easily for half an hour before you can go to the MTR station. And you're using the same road going to the loop. If you do not expand or widen that road, it's going to be a major bottleneck. Furthermore, when you build the loop area, I'm sure that road will not be able to cope. So for the advanced works, before you start the works, you will need to take care of the transport arrangements first. Regarding the funding, the DAB is in support of that. Director, thank you, Mr. Wong, and the DAB for your support. Regarding the funding, whether or not we need to come back for supplementary funding. According to our estimate, that estimate is based on the latest market conditions. If there are no major changes to the market conditions, we have confidence in the estimate. And Mr. Zheng will now answer the question regarding the transport arrangements. First of all, I agree that the link road to the east will need to be built at the latter stage. But for Phase 2 of the Innovation and Technology Park, according to our study, the road to the west should be able to cope. Given the current road conditions, we are proposing that the road to the west, I think during the advanced works, we will have minor road improvement works to improve the traffic there. We've observed the traffic situation there, and we are confident that we'll be able to cope with the situation. Dr. N. Zheng, now that we are on the subject of transport, I'd like to ask, I'm sorry to take up your time, Ms. Zheng. I think our discussion for this item is about to finish, so I'm going to draw a line after Tanya Chen has finished. On transport, I noticed that for Lok Ma Chau station is closest to the loop. Going from Lok Ma Chau to Yuen Long, would we consider proposing to the MTRC to provide for a rail link? Otherwise, people taking buses from Yuen Long to Lok Ma Chau, it takes almost 45 minutes, and if there is congestion, it would take an hour. And we all know that in Yuen Long and Tin Shui Wai, there are many young people living there. And recently we learned that there is a youth hostel being built there, and about 1,200 units will be built there, and close to 2,000 people will be moving into those dormitories. So they could become a major source of manpower for the loop. So we propose to the MTRC to do that. Well, thank you, Dr. Jiang, for your suggestion. In the 2014 Railway Development Strategy, one proposal was the Northern Link from linking up Kam Sheung Road to the Kutong Station. Ms. Chang is suggesting whether we could also link up with the Lok Ma Chau, border crossing facility. We will certainly relay your suggestion to the department concerned. From Kam Sheung Road to Kutong, Fanling or Shengshui rather. At Kutong, you have the Lok Ma Chau spur line going to the Lok Ma Chau station. So where do people interchange? In Shengshui, to go to the it's most likely it will be at the new Kutong station. So people interchange at Kutong station going to Lok Ma Chau and then walk across to the loop area. Yes. Chairman, we're now approving funds for the project which will begin in 2018. The whole project will only be finished in 2023. But this is only the funding for the main work, for the building of the roads and the bridges and so on. But could you expedite the project and start the other works as well? For the main works, for example, the contamination, building the ecological area, site formation, that's already done, right? Do you have the entire plan yet? Well, as Madam Choi said, for the Innovation and Technology Park, the overall design, I think we're still waiting for a consultancy study before we finalize on the design. As to whether we can expedite the works, we are already trying to expedite the work for when sites are, once the sites are formed, we will hand over the site to the Science and Technology Park to build the infrastructures there. You can rest assured that we will try our best to move ahead. So for 4A, you will be, if you're going to expedite the works and you will come back and ask for additional funding, yeah, whether or not we need additional funding for the building of the complexes. Once you finish with 760, after the detailed design is in place, only then will they come back for funding to build the facilities there. Another question about wetland compensation. To whom will you make the compensation to? There are two sites. Thank you. I've already said earlier on that for the main works package 1, the fish ponds, there will be some fish ponds which will be affected, and these ponds have their ecological value. In order to compensate for the loss of ecological value, we will provide for compensation to make up for the loss of the ecological value. Tanya Chan. I also like to ask about the ecological area. In answering Ms. Mo's question, you talk about important design. But according to your paper, for the B of the advanced work, you talk about establishment of an ecological area within the loop. Are we talking about the same thing? Is the funding going to be used for the design or the construction of the ecological area? In paragraph 18, we learned that you need to wait until the ecological area is built before you can proceed with the rest of the project. You need to build the ecological area, to offer the compensation first. I'd like to know, also how much it's going to cost to build this ecological area. And for the MOU you signed last year, you refer to clause 3 regarding the scope of cooperation. It says that the Hong Kong side agreed to take effective measures for, convenient exit entry, arrangements for people working the loop. In the past, you didn't talk about new arrangements. We already asked Mr. Charles Mock about this, and it should be like people who want to come and they will need to apply for a visa. So what are the new exceptional entry and exit arrangements? Are you going to build cross-border facilities there and have co-location there as well? Thank you. Regarding the ecological area and wetland compensation, the ecological area is included in the advanced work, so it's not design, it's the actual construction of the area. Regarding wetland compensation, it's in phase 1 of the main work, and we're now applying for funding for the design. So we will conduct a design on that. How much does it cost, the ecological area? A rough estimate, perhaps Mr. Cheung can give you a rough figure on the cooperation arrangements and entry and exit arrangements. I'll ask Mr. Cheung to answer the question. Thank you. For the ecological area, a rough estimate would be 230 million. 230 million. 230 million. Please speak up. What about the entry and exit arrangements? Yes, for mainlanders, mainland people who need to, coming in and out of the area for, scientific collaboration. And if they need to work there in the loop area, they are required to have a visa. But for the convenient entry-exit arrangements for people who frequent the loop, for example, are we thinking of whether or not we can give them something like the Apex card so that they don't need to queue up for too long? But we haven't worked out the details yet at this stage because there's still yet time before the loop will come into operation. But certainly the visa requirements will be there. Well, I still have time, Chairman. Having read the whole MOU, basically this is an MOU for cooperation. Very often in this MOU there is a clause which is the governing law. This is a friendly agreement and you can work out everything by friendly negotiation. But for what is the governing law for this agreement for collaboration?
Just like the Hong Kong Palace Museum, you have put in the governing law for reference. Can I please ask about this? Undersecretary, can I defer to the Commissioner? If you read the MOU, in the second paragraph under background, it says it will act according to the laws of the Hong Kong SAR. It is on the first page under background that it is agreed that under one
政區嘅法律，按住共同開發共享成果原則咧，合作
under the principle of enjoying the fruits of development
係香港法律嘅。
好，即係第二段嗰度。
Please look at paragraph 2.
咁時間過咗啦，咁簡單就係
Time is up for this item. I have not heard any members objecting to the relevant funding request. I believe you can go ahead and continue with the next steps. Secondly, when you come to panels with these papers, as you know, we always like to ask you about the big breakdown. It is not reasonable for you to say you can only answer the question at PWSC. I think that is quite unreasonable. You should come prepared. And number 3, with regard to decontamination, well, I think you should think of including a particular corner there. You should not wait for other arrangements before you also tackle that corner. Last but not least, and when you study into linking up the Lok Ma Chau railway station by a direct road, well, that is not reasonable. There are no vehicles there. You should provide total accessibility for pedestrians. At least you should include that in your study instead of providing a road but pedestrian connections, because it is a very short road, and if you provide for vehicles it will be very congested. I believe members are in support of submitting this proposal to the PWSC and the Finance Committee. Okay, I haven't heard any conjecture, but be prepared to answer questions. And please be prepared to answer members satisfactorily. Thank you. Thank you for your support. Next item. Item 5. enhanced tax deduction for research and development expenditure. May we invite the administration to come in. The administration will be introducing to us proposed amendment to the Inland Revenue Ordinance, which aims to provide companies with enhanced tax deduction for their spending on qualifying research and development activities. And the administration proposes to submit an amendment in the first half of the year, hoping to roll out the measure in the third quarter. I welcome the administration team. I think you have settled down. Please be aware that the administration has submitted a paper CB-1449-05, and the Secretariat has also provided a background brief in paper 06. Please also declare any interest you may have relating to this item over to the administration. Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, members. The administration wants to promote local R&D, and we propose to provide extra tax deduction for R&D from 100% to a much bigger amount so as to encourage local R&D. From the new financial year, we'd like to start the new tax deductions. For the first 2 million, there will be a 300% deduction, and the remaining part, there will be 200% deduction. There will be no cap on the amount of the relevant tax deduction. We'll be amending the IRO to authorize the Commissioner that he can consult the Commissioner for INT when he considers providing tax deduction. We have already consulted the different stakeholders, and they generally support the proposal. In the first half of the year, we'll be submitting a legislative amendment proposal to the LC, and I hope members will continue to support our legislative proposals. Thank you. Members, your questions are welcome. 4 minutes. First of all, Mr. Jimmy Ng. Thank you. May I refer? Sorry. We have received a motion without notice from Ms. Ann Chang. I have already checked it. It is related to this discussion item. I will ask the clerk to copy the motion to members. Mr. Jimmy Ng. I am aware in the paper you talk about qualified R&D, and they will be subject to 300% deduction. And those that do not qualify include salaries, bonus, share options, tax, testing expenses, etc. But if we go for local R&D institution and we outsource the entire project, then we will be able to get 300% tax deduction. My question is, with regard to local R&D organization, they will also have to spend money on testing, on leasing, on maintenance. And if I outsource the entire project, then we can have 300% deduction. So these organizations will also benefit. If that's the case, does it mean the Bureau does not encourage local enterprises to do R&D so they can become bigger in scale? Or rather, you just want to benefit the R&D organizations? Secretary, thank you for the question. Can I ask the Commissioner to clarify this issue? I don't think that's our purpose. And if necessary, the Commissioner for IRD can also supplement. CIT, about outsourcing R&D work, we have to look at what the R&D expenditure actually is. If the expenditure is not related to the production of new knowledge or technology, if it is not really R&D in nature, then it will not be included as qualifying expenditure. Under the IRO, we have a similar definition. R&D means that there will be the bringing about of new knowledge, new material, or new technology. But you have not answered Mr. Ng's question. His question is, you allow the entire project to be outsourced. Well, but even if you outsource the work, we want to know what work has been outsourced. We have to check how much R&D is there within the whole project. Well, Chairman, the business sector is very flexible. I can write the brief or mandate to the R&D organization in a very simple way. But then in the process of doing the research, well, that will not be reflected in the quotation. There will be testing done. There will be the seeking of a third-party opinion. Actually, this is very common when you talk about a new invention. In fact, this will be hidden in the process, but it is not reflected in the invoice, so there is no way you can vet it. CIT. This is our policy objective, that we want to provide extra deduction to R&D, but Mr. Ng is now reminding us that you may write a very general brief. Then we might like to think about the operational details so we can express our policy objective more clearly and so that we can get to know what is actually done. When we write out the actual operational details, we will discuss with the IRD in order to avoid what Mr. Ng said would happen. In other words, that whatever should not be included will be included. I'd like to know whether this legislative amendment is for negative or positive vetting. Chairman, this is the principal legislation. Okay, so members can scrutinize the bill and members can ask questions. Okay, this is to remind the Commission that you have to think about the amendment very clearly. Mr. Ronick Chan, the policy objective is to increase local R&D as part of GDP from 0.73% and enhance it to 1.5%. In para 10, you say you have made reference to international practices. Well, we have to think about other ways and means instead of just practices, so you can encourage the private enterprises to do this. Well, in the financial sector, I can give you this example. If there is R&D, say, for example, to provide services through fintech, the regulator will certainly require the financial institutions to do testing and to seek the opinion of a third party, maybe even two opinions from third parties before a new service can be rolled out, because the regulator would want to protect the public. Right now, the proposal is if I want to introduce fintech, which is also subsumed under the definition of R&D in the present IRO. However, this will only enjoy 100% tax deduction. As for testing and consultants' views, well, in fact, those are very important factors for developing fintech. Therefore, I have the same question as Mr. Ng. Why is it that this cannot enjoy extra deduction? If this is outsourced to an R&D institute, then we may be the one monitoring the result. And we also have to vet the consultants as well. I'd like to therefore thresh out the point for the consideration of the CIT. Chairman, I understand that. But very often, testing may not be directly related to R&D. You may have your existing systems. You may want to upgrade the system, but it has nothing to do with R&D. You are not going to produce new knowledge or new technology. You may be purchasing new software, but you still have to do testing. Therefore, testing may not always be related to R&D, but I do understand the views of Mr. Ng and Mr. Chan that we might have overlooked certain matters.
我哋會再返去睇下
As I said, we'll go back and look at the operation side to make things clear. And so that we can ask for a detailed breakdown when applications are made, so we can actually know what is related to R&D and what is not. But the policy objective is really to subsidize R&D so that we can have the creation of new knowledge, technology, or materials. This is how it is defined in other places as well. Mr. Chairman, just now the CIT said testing may not necessarily be related to R&D, but the 300% tax deduction can be limited to testing that is proved to be related to R&D. Therefore, when you say testing may not be related to R&D, I can also say that I am doing the test for new technology, or else you will not succeed in encouraging the private sector to plow in R&D resources, which can double the present amount. The point of the question is that when enterprises do it themselves or when they outsource to designated local institutes, they may enjoy different tax benefits. And we can continue to think about that point, but it is clear that this is the concern of members.
I'd like to declare that our group has a subsidiary which is conducting R&D on the apps. So my question is that if the company is using certain systems, and after using the system for some time, they will need to upgrade the system, and expenses will be incurred, and market surveys will need to be carried out. For these, activities, would they be eligible for tax deductions? Other than that, if the company develop a new system which is used by its subsidiary, and also it will sell the products it has developed to other enterprises. So how do you? So what should the tax deductions be? After a new system is being developed, other than using the company using the new system itself, we could sell it to others. Well, I don't think the mic is on. Okay. If you procure some, off-the-shelf system for upgrade, then this would not be considered R&D because you're talking about existing technology, and therefore you'll not be entitled to the tax deductions. But if you want to conduct R&D to develop a new system, conceptually, then with this you will be eligible. So it will depend on exactly what you actually are developing. So for the system which is used by the company itself, it is a cost item. So for the expenses incurred, would that be eligible for deduction? But if it sells the system to outside parties and earns a profit, so how would they be eligible? Would they be eligible for deduction? Whether or not they make a profit is not the point. The point is that when they upgrade the system, and if there are already hardwares and softwares in the system, you are just buying something from outside or and employing somebody to help you do the upgrade, then it would not count as R&D into a new technology, and there will be no deduction. But if you have your own staff developing a new system for the company, then such research, projects will be eligible for the larger deductions. But if you buy, a ready-made system, then it will be considered as a capital expenditure, so there will not be any additional tax deductions. What about market research? For market research, this is not considered to be eligible R&D activities or qualifying R&D activities. Mr. Wong Ting Kwong. I don't know how I should put it. So you will only be eligible for tax deductions if you can make a profit. If there are no profits, how can there be any deductions? So the fruit of R&D should ensure the corporation make a profit, so that they will be able to be, so that they will be eligible for the so-called super deduction. Many people say that high technology is risky and the company may incur losses. If you embark on 10 R&D projects, if one turn out to be a success, it is already a remarkable achievement. I therefore think that I admit that this is a good policy, but it's not good enough. First of all, how can the company make a profit? You need to launch the result of the R&D to the market. If the market accepts it, then you can make a profit. If nobody's using what you have developed, then it's useless. People say that it's useless. So the market is the determining factor. If the company make a profit, then only then will they be eligible for tax deduction. So my suggestion for the director and the secretary is whether you can consider this. That is, if the result of the R&D is launched to the market, the cost of launching marketing the result of the R&D, would you consider, offering tax deductions for that as well? As I said, the company will only be eligible for tax deductions if they make a profit. If I launch the result, the product of my R&D, could the marketing expenses be eligible to the deduction as well? To answer the question, I've operated a factory myself. I know what you're saying. First of all, when our bureau launched such a policy, we want to ensure that the result of R&D can be launched to the market. Talking about market research, sometimes you may not be launching a single item which is the result of your R&D. You could be launching a whole series of your company's products. Whether you're making a profit and whether or not you are eligible for deduction. You could be making profit from other products, and this could be carried forward. We've looked at the practices in other countries. They would like to offer incentives for businesses to have more incentive to invest in R&D. So the R&D would become a long-term investment, so that the company will be able to earn even more profit in future. If the marketing expenses are also included, you want to find out in the market research whether the market is acceptable to the market. That is difficult. All companies would like to do something to enable them to make a profit. We hope that this policy and other policies can encourage businesses to be able to launch, the result of the R&D. To answer Mr. Wong's question, the deductions we now propose is that you don't have to wait until the time for you to make your tax payment before its deduction. It is actually so after the deduction, even if you don't have to pay any taxes, if you're not making a profit, that I think that the deductions could be carried forward indefinitely. But the company would need to have a lot of capital to withstand losses for a long period first. In other words, my company would need to make substantial profits to support the R&D. So it's going to benefit the large corporations and not the SMEs, Secretary. I can give you a simple example. For a business which invests in R&D, let's say every year you spend 3% of your turnover investing into R&D. After you benefited from the super deductions, you can invest up to 9% of your turnover. So for companies like Apple and Lenovo or Huawei, of course, they are making so much profits, and they can certainly invest in R&D and benefit from the deductions. For my own company, I may not be able to survive after 2 or 3 years. I think time is almost up. When we read the amendment to the ordinance, we can deliberate on that in more detail. Charles Mock, I think Mr. Wong Ting Kwong asked a very good question. But if we could attract Apple and Lenovo to come to Hong Kong and hire many people because of the tax concessions, I think it's still a good thing. But I also agree that we need to come up with other ways to offer, tax concessions for the SMEs. But perhaps that is a different subject that we can discuss later on. On this particular subject, Mr. Nguyen Ka asked a very good question just now. For designated R&D organizations, right now is the secretary for R&D. They are actually tertiary institutions and R&D organizations. I'd like to know whether you have a list of that, or are you going to only work out the list later? And you say any tertiary institution in Hong Kong, it may not be all the local universities. They will need to be on your list to qualify, right? And there is concern that in Hong Kong, the large R&D institutions, most of them are already subsidized by the government or already under the auspices of the Bureau and your estuary. So will you be benefiting all these organizations, and you may not be able to get the best result? Some businesses, some companies would like to get the tax concessions and only, treat R&D as a formality in order to get the concessions. But I don't think you should require that the result of the R&D would guarantee a profit. But we still want you to be efficient, to ensure the public funds are spent properly, and that we can end up with good R&D outcomes. So how can we, address that issue? For the requirement regarding the requirements or qualification for tax deduction, the IRD will make the final decision. I have to conduct the R&D first. I don't apply to your estuary Innovation Technology Department and become recognized before I can file my tax returns. And after I file my tax return, the IRD will determine whether I'm eligible and so on. So for the business itself, will they be, misled? They thought that they would be eligible, but in the end they don't. So some people may have difficulty understanding whether, the R&D they do will be eligible for the deductions. There is a procedure for advance ruling, so you can check beforehand whether you will be eligible. I think the IRD has a lot of experience doing that. Perhaps the Commissioner can supplement on this point as to whether we will benefit the local R&D organizations. I can give you some reference. Those institutions funded by the ITF, let's say the government will pay half the cost. The enterprise will pay half the cost to carry out an R&D project, and the result of the research, the IP and so on, will belong to the company, the business. Our purpose here is that the 50% contributed by the company, because of this super tax concessions, to qualify. So we will make a deduction. We don't want to transfer this amount and benefit the R&D organizations. We just want to further, enhance our collaboration. First of all, the Commissioner for Inland Revenue, in the amendment to the ordinance, we will add a provision saying that if the Commissioner, when some companies make a declaration that they've made some R&D, work, they've done some R&D and apply for deductions, then if they need to, then the Commissioner can make inquiries with the INF, the Innovation and Knowledge Department. And ITF, we've been vetting these applications for 20 years. We have the experience to judge whether a particular project, we can look at its personnel and machinery and judge whether or not they're actually, for R&D purpose, and we can advise the R&D accordingly. For these designated organizations, they're basically universities and publicly funded R&D organizations. As to whether they're also privately funded R&D organizations, if they indeed are conducting R&D, they can apply and we can add them to the list. You already have such organizations. We don't at the moment, but in future we expect there will be, because there's not a lot of R&D work being done in Hong Kong yet. So we are not seeing many private organizations doing that. But in future, if there are such private organizations doing that and apply to us, and once we are satisfied that they are indeed doing the R&D work, we can add them to the list. You do have procedures for application? No, not yet. When the ordinance is passed, will this be stipulated in the ordinance? No.
In the law, it will be stated that this will be designated by me, the CIT. And on our webpage, we'll tell people how to apply. Dr. Lo Wai Kwok, Chairman, of course, the enhanced tax deduction for R&D is something good for the business community in Hong Kong. In fact, there are enterprises of different scale in Hong Kong which are willing to spend on R&D, and this is already happening. But sometimes the product of the R&D may not be known to the public, and there is too little publicity done by the government. In fact, state-of-the-art products have originated from R&D and product design in Hong Kong. The BPA thinks that there should be another definition. Para 11 of the paper. Now, what is the expenditure that is not qualifying? Testing expenses, fees paid for expert advice, license fees paid for use of intellectual property rights, because they can still qualify for 100% deduction under the existing IRO. Well, this is a lie. This is part of the cost. Of course, even under the present accounting system, this is part of your expenditure. What we are talking about is enhanced tax deduction to encourage them to spend on R&D. And very often they have to do tests. If you say testing expenses are not a kind of qualifying expenditure, that's mind-boggling. And also, you need to pay the experts for their advice when you do R&D. You don't need to explain that to me today, but I think you should not just stick to the existing definition in the present IRO. Look at the present situation. And if you look at enterprises doing R&D, what they are doing, just get to know what they are doing, and then you can reconsider what should qualify for extra or enhanced tax deduction? I'm not asking the administration to invent a new definition, but just look at the other economic entities around us which are doing a good job. They would give you very good reference. Since we are in an IT competition, this is one step we are taking, but it's a very small step. And such definitions are quite laughable. I hope you will succeed in doing this, and as the paper said, that hopefully our R&D expenses can be enhanced to 1.5% of GDP. That is actually very low. If you look at other economic entities which are successful with R&D, their expenditure as a part of GDP will not be so low. CIT, you have heard many questions on the definition for qualifying expenditure. I believe you need to come up with a better explanation when you come up with the bill. I need to spare some time for Ms. Anne Chang's motion, so I will just ask a brief question. If you look at Singapore, they have the productivity and innovation credit. How does the present proposal compare with Singapore and Israel? If you don't have the answer now, you can write a paper for me. Secondly, para 13. You talk about preventing artificially inflated claims. Can I have the details? If you need a long time, you can do it in writing. And number 3, many members have asked this question, and that is, within this tax reduction proposal, are you trying to encourage large enterprises to undertake R&D themselves, or is it that you are just encouraging the outsourcing of the work? This is a policy question, and I'm sure people will ask these questions in the Bills Committee. Can I please ask you just about 13C today? Who can answer the question? Chairman, these are accounting conventions. In other words, whether it is the actual expenditure. Well, okay. You mean when you come up with the bill, we can have a full debate on this one. Ms. Anne Chang has proposed a motion. When members agree to process this motion, there is no objection, we'll process it. Ms. Anne Chang, can you please introduce the motion? Is it that you have a question, Ms. Chang? Sorry. Yes, I haven't asked any questions, Chairman. Sorry. I thought that the proposal would benefit medium-sized enterprises, because in Hong Kong you have many industrialists which operate medium-sized corporations, and they are the ones who want to do the most R&D. But your proposal clearly does not apply to medium or small-sized enterprises. The proposal is for 300% deduction. Say if I invest $1 million, and the 300% must allow me to include other expenses, or else if my investment is only $1 million, I will not be able to benefit. And also, you need to make a profit before you can enjoy the deduction. In other words, small enterprises or enterprises operated by young people will definitely not stand to gain. Secondly, I'm not really happy about the fact that the CIT will be able to state the qualifying or designated institutions, including local university, college, institute, association, or organization in Hong Kong. Say if I see an incubator operated by young people and I want to give the work to them, if that incubator is not within the list designated by the CIT, does it mean I will not enjoy the extra tax deduction? Secretary. First, whether or not you are an enterprise of any scale, you may be a startup. Your R&D expenditure will take up a big chunk of your expenditure at the beginning. You may be looking at profits, but as I was explaining, whether or not you make a profit, you can use this forever. Well, you mean I should accumulate the loss? I understand. Well, I know. But perhaps you want to invest 3% of your trading volume in R&D. And if you reduce it to 1%, well, under the IRO, this is about loss accumulation. Even if you buy property, you can accumulate the loss. Ms. Chang, I like to say whether you make a profit depends on the mode of operation of the enterprise. We can only do so that actually your R&D expenditure can be reduced. This is what the administration can do. But as to whether enterprises make a profit, it is about the business operation itself. You haven't answered my question. And as for the designation of local research institutions by the CIT, as she said, if private enterprises can prove that they can become a research institution that fits the definition in our mind, we can certainly include them in the designated list. And enterprises of any scale will be able to benefit. Well, it's up to you to designate the institutions or not. Say, if it is an incubator set up by 5 to 6 young persons, will they qualify? We will ask experts to help us. It will not be done just by the CIT alone. Well, I know it is the work of the entire commission, but what I'm saying is, according to the paper, it seems these must be universities or large institutions. Is there anybody from the IRD? Yes? Can I ask this question? How many more people do you need to implement this? Because this looks rather complicated. We will keep the situation under check. If there are many applications and the amount involved is big, the IRD will certainly have to deploy manpower, and if that's not enough, we will certainly apply for more manpower. At the present stage, the IRD is working on the drafting of the principal legislation, and then we will work out IR guidelines, and information will be put on the website so taxpayers will know how the deduction is done. Okay, I think many members have spoken a lot on the proposal. When you propose the principal legislation, I hope you can have all the answers. The Secretary, please remember what members have said. We support the proposal in principle, but we have a lot to say about the details, especially about designated local research institutions, and also you can only outsource the work, the wording and the text of the legislation must be able to reflect the policy objectives of your proposal. I'm sure the Bills Committee will hold heated discussion. Ms. N. Cheng, can you now read out your motion? Thank you. That this panel urge the administration step up and improve the policy of enhanced tax deduction for R&D. The proposals are: first, to implement the policy as soon as possible, streamline the application procedures to help save time and cost for enterprises. 2, to delineate more clearly the standards for designating local research institutions and expand the scheme to cover private enterprises which have their own R&D capabilities. Can we have a show of hands? Those in favor? I can see all members have raised their hands. No one will be objecting. Okay, the motion is carried unanimously. I can summarize that members may have a lot of concern about the operation details, but we do support the submission of the proposal to LegCo for a Bills Committee to be set up. But the Bureau and the IRD must remember concerns raised by members. Those may have to do with the technical drafting of the law. Okay, I hope you will remember all that. That's it for the discussion of this item, and we expect to see the bill ASAP so we can have the chance to ask you more questions at the Bills Committee. Item 6. It's the right time for us to go into item 6, progress on the establishment of the Innovation and Technology Venture Fund. I think the entire team is here, and I will ask the administration to take us through the item. And also, the administration is going to add an item of specified transactions in order to tackle the relevant inland revenue issues. This will be gazetted in April 2018. Now the officials can start to introduce the paper. The paper is CB bracket 1 449 bracket 07, and the background brief prepared by the Secretariat is in paper 08. Can I now defer to the administration, the Secretary, to take us through the paper?
Secretary, thank you. Chairman and members, I'd like to brief you on the progress of the Innovation and Technology Venture Fund. In order to encourage venture funds to make more investment in Hong Kong, in September last year, we launched a $2 billion Innovation and Technology Venture Fund, and we publicly invited applications from local and overseas organizations to become co-investors in the fund. On a ratio of 1 to 2, we will make joint investments. We will be the passive investor. These co-investment partners will select the targets for investment, and we will offer them share options as incentives. Yesterday was the deadline for application from co-investment partners. We will complete the screening of the application, and we announced the result in the second quarter of this year, and the investment can start in the second half of this year. Regarding the tax issues, which are the concern of some of the venture capitals, we will be amending the IRO so that offshore venture capital funds will be able to benefit from tax concessions. We would urge the panel to support this project and give us your valuable advice. Mr. Chen Zhenying, thank you. I think the fund was Innovation and Technology Venture Fund was launched in September. Deadline for application was just ended yesterday. Originally, by the 5th of there were only 4 applications, and you say that the number of applications were, as expected. So I'd like to know how many applications have been received at the time of the deadline. I understand that at the initial stage, the fund can invest into 40 to 50 these enterprises engage in innovation technology. Regarding the sharing of risk, in paragraph 13, the government say there will be an exit mechanism, which is that you will ask the co-investment partner to buy the original. So what do you mean by capital, the principal and a reasonable amount of premium? You say that it will be based on the performance and success of these startups. So there are two questions. For this premium, do you count that at the time when the investment was initially made, or is it that after some time you would work out with the venture capital funds to work out a different price, and then the government can receive more or less? Thank you, Mr. Chen. First of all, as of yesterday, we have received 14 applications. 14. 1-4. As for the other parts, I'd like to explain that the 5-year exit mechanism means that we would like to make use of this policy to promote these innovation and technology projects. We want to have more and more projects. It is not our objective to make a profit. So for the exit mechanism, what we're saying is that after 5 years, if our partner wants to, show all the risk, then the principal and the return on investment. I'm talking about. So this is the return on the government's capital or principal. It's only fair that the government will get, a return on its investment. So on the one hand, the government should get a reasonable return on the capital it has invested, and that our partner will have a chance to get a bigger return. We hope that when the fund is released, it can be reinvested into other projects. Perhaps I can also ask the director to further supplement. Mr. Chen is referring to the exit mechanism in paragraph 13. And this is about how do we calculate the premium. We will be engaging a third party to make the assessment and to find out how much that project is worth at the time. The government will find that third party, but the investment partner will have to show that the cost. So it will be the third party which will determine on the performance and the extent of success of the company and how much premium will need to be paid. As for the 40 and 50, the number, that is our original estimate. That is during the 5-year investment period. A conservative estimate is how many investments will be made by the companies. It would depend, of course, on the number of startups and the environment at the time. Charles Moore. The secretary said that for this fund there are now already 14 applications. Of course, I'm very interested, and I don't know whether you can give us the numbers. It's not appropriate for us to provide the information as to what type of companies they are. Are they local or overseas or mainland companies? I'm not forcing you to give us the details today because you're still vetting the applications. But later on, we would like to know about such information and details so that we would know what type of companies we have attracted to join the scheme and whether these are, capable companies and so on. I'm more concerned about the tax issue. I welcome the administration to proposal to amend the IRO so that offshore venture, to address the concern of the offshore venture capitals. And they're not just concerned about the INT fund, venture capital fund. Some of them are concerned that they might lose some of the tax exemptions if they participate. But overall, I think this will have an impact on the INT funds. So a few years ago, a bills committee had debated whether or not we would offer incentives to overseas venture funds, but not local ones. We would also like to know what is the timetable for the amendment to the ordinance, and how this can tie in with the companies. For these venture capital funds or private equities, if they want to make an investment, they will not wait until they will not make the investment after you've amended the ordinance. If you can give them a clear picture as soon as possible and when you're going to start this project, and this will really help them in making the investment decision. And many of the investees would also like the deals to be executed as soon as possible. I also like to ask whether or not the Innovation and Technology Bureau has tried to find out about the latest trend, that is for venture capital investment and for investment into the so-called seed companies. Well, on the other hand, you have a fund set up by the government like Cyber Park and so on. They also have similar investment funds, but they've not actually, have had many projects yet. So have you considered whether in future you can actually, improve the atmosphere a bit so that there could be more such investors? I'll start, and the director can supplement. You refer to the Cyber Park Fund, investment fund, and they are only limited to the cyber port companies. They're using their own funds to make the investment. Regarding the trend regarding VC, I'd like to emphasize that the INT Venture Capital Fund is focused on the A rung. And these, over the years, I think Hong Kong, we've observed that Hong Kong is rather weak in this link. So the atmosphere is gradually improving for A rung. The return is very attractive, and people would like to share the risk in such investments. So perhaps the director can supplement. Yes. To answer Mr. Mock's question regarding the investment atmosphere, in the Venture Capital Association of Hong Kong, they have released some figures. In 2013, the total amount of investments was around 200 million. Of course, they don't have detailed breakdown as to whether or not they are round A or round B or seed companies. But in 2016, it has gone up to 4.3 billion. In 2017, for the first 9 months, it has already exceeded 6 billion. So one can see that there has been multiple increase, substantial increase here, and the atmosphere in the venture capital market has now become more mature. And the other question is about the 14 organizations, and who are these? Well, we have confidential agreements with them, and we are not able to give you the details. But once we have screened the applications, once they become our co-investment partners, we will be able to announce their names. But before we look at the details, because the deadline was only yesterday, but we've seen that the applications have come from local venture capitals and also those from overseas and the mainland. They are both large, including large and small scale venture funds of different categories. We are now screening these applications. As to when we are going to gazette the bylaws, it is our target that by April or May we'll be able to gazette the bylaws so that everyone would know about the amendment. In September, we launched the fund. We started to invite co-investment partners. We already informed the venture capital industry about our plan. So they are aware that we'll be amending Schedule 16. So they have been fully informed before they put in the application. Well, I have two simple questions. The amendment of the schedule, is it going to be negative vetting? Yes. And secondly, have you assessed whether the $2 billion fund would be exhausted through this round of application? Or should there be any surplus? Would there be a second or third round of applications so that within a short time we can attract more venture capital companies to come to Hong Kong and to make more investments? Chairman, for venture capital funds, for VCs, the investment period is roughly 8 to 12 years. If they come, they will already have a long-term plan. They will continue to make their investments until the amount they have allocated for the investment will be exhausted, and we make the investment in parallel with them. After they come to Hong Kong, they will not make the investment, at one go. They will arrange for the investment to be spread out among a number of years. In the initial years, initial period it will be, 4 to 8 years. For venture capital, normally it's 8 to 12 years, and after 8 years, they will extend the investment period for 2, 3, 4 years. So for this round of application, not the full amount of the investment will be exhausted. It will continue to run, but then there will be, funds coming in and out. Normally, there will be a commitment. When the venture capital company had received funding, they will make a commitment as to how they will make the investment over a number of years.
We'll work in partnership with them and will follow their term. It's like this. In other words, we are the limited partner, and perhaps there can be another round of such funds which will be invited. We have to see how this operates. If the funds are depleted quickly, we may have to come back to apply for more funding so we can invite more VCs to join. We won't rule out that possibility. Supposing there is unspent funding, so you go into the second round to invite VCs. What are the conditions? What are your considerations? Do you have a timetable? Like by a certain time in the first stage, you would consider starting a second stage. The CIT, we need to do the first round of screening first. We have to select the VC funds as our partners. And then we'll have to see how much money they prepare to spend. And then we will commit our own amount. Say if they fork out 200 million, then we'll fork out 100 million because the ratio is 1 to 2. Supposing that's the provision, but it's not fully spent. Supposing we select 5 or 6, and still the 2 billion is not exhausted, then we will issue new invitations. And we will use the same conditions because some people might have not made it for the first round. But if we can select many in the first stage, then we would have made our commitment. Well, exactly. I was asking about any unspent amount. And also, our funds will recirculate, and that will be fresh money for committing. If there are no other questions, I have heard that members support the proposal in principle. And it is expected that in April this will be gazetted. I believe after that you will again submit papers to us. And this will be for negative vetting. And we'll be able to delve more in depth into the operation details of the ITVF. This is still the stage 4 application, and maybe you cannot give us all the information. I will let you know that perhaps we are going to set up a bills committee on this. But we are not going to really talk about the bill, then it's about the policy evolution and the results. I hope the Bureau will be prepared to answer questions. Well, I think we have completed before time. It's good. Now it's time for AOB. If there is nothing under AOB, I thank you for attending the meeting. This is the first time we have met in the new year. Happy New Year to all. Thank you very much. Meeting is adjourned here. Thank you.